Haley still remembered the day my father left. The sky was the color of dishwater. Fitting, I guess. Dirty gray. Streaked with the kind of clouds that made you wonder if the sun had given up. He stood in the living room, stuffing shirts into his suitcase like he was late for a flight. I was sitting cross-legged on the couch, hugging my stuffed bear, a worn-out thing with one eye and stuffing poking from its side. "Where are you going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked up, startled, like he didn't expect me to speak. "Work trip," he said, smiling too quickly. "Just a few days, pumpkin." I blinked. "Why do you need the big suitcase then?" He laughed, but it was thin. "Grown-up stuff. Gotta look sharp for the meetings." Mom came in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked at him like he was something she couldn't quite identify anymore. "You didn't tell me about any trip," she said, arms crossed. Her voice wasn't angry. It was tired. "She'd been tired a lot lately. I told you last week," he said quickly, avoiding her eyes. "You must have forgotten." "I don't forget things like that," she said, her jaw tightening. "Especially not when the mortgage is overdue and you still haven't paid the credit card bill." I looked between them. I was only 9, but I knew tension when I heard it. My stomach twisted. Dad zipped up the suitcase. "I'll sort it all when I'm back. Just trust me, okay?" Mom stepped closer. "When are you coming back?" He hesitated. That second, just one, was all I needed to know the answer. He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Soon." He leaned down and kissed the top of my head. His lips felt cold. "Be good, pumpkin." And then he walked out the door. I waited by the window for the first 2 nights. Every sound of tires on gravel made my heart jump. I kept thinking I'd see his car pull in, headlights sweeping across the driveway like they used to, but he didn't come back. 2 weeks later, the bank called. Mom picked up the phone in the kitchen, her voice already tight. I was coloring at the table. "Yes, this is Mrs. Bennett." "Yes, that's our address." "I'm sorry, what?" She pressed the phone closer to her ear, and her face turned pale. "No, there must be some mistake. My husband handled that." "What do you mean defaulted?" I looked up, crayon in midair. She didn't answer me when she hung up the phone. She sat down slowly, like her knees gave out. Then she buried her face in her hands and whispered something I couldn't hear. My mother then checked our bank accounts. Turns out my father had already cleaned them. Not a dime left. A month later, a letter came. I remember Mom staring at it like it might explode. "Eviction?" She said aloud, more to herself than to me. "He didn't just leave. He left with everything." She sank onto the couch, shoulders trembling. I crawled into her lap like I used to when I was scared. Her arms wrapped around me like she was trying to hold us both together. "We're gonna be okay, baby," she whispered into my hair. "I don't know how yet, but we will be. I promise." But she didn't sound sure. We lost the house 3 months later. Our things were boxed up and taken to a storage unit we could barely afford. Mom sold her wedding ring to cover the deposit on a dingy studio apartment on the edge of town. The walls were yellowed and the heater hissed like it was trying to breathe its last breath. Mom picked up extra shifts. She started working nights at a diner after cleaning offices during the day. I learned how to microwave dinners and do laundry. At 10 years old, I became a quiet little adult. "Don't worry about the lights," she'd say when they flickered. "Old wiring, that's all." She'd kiss my forehead and pretend she wasn't worried. I'd pretend I wasn't hungry when she split one sandwich between us. We both got real good at pretending. One night, a year after he left, I asked the question that had lived in my chest like a splinter: why did he leave us? Mom didn't answer right away. She looked out the window, her face reflected in the glass like a ghost. "Some men run when things get hard," she said finally. "And some run because they were never really here to begin with." I didn't know what she meant then, but I do now. I wasn't supposed to hear the phone call. It was a chilly evening, the kind that crept into the bones of the old apartment. I was 12. Mom thought I was asleep, tucked under 2 blankets with socks on my hands because the heating had gone out again. But I heard her in the kitchen, her voice low. Cracking, Melanie Cooper, she whispered into the phone. Yes. That's her. She is the one my husband left us for. I sat up, my stomach twisting. Melanie. That name stuck like gum in my head. There was silence, then a frustrated exhale. No, I don't want to drag Haley into this, she said. She's just a kid. She hung up a few minutes later. I listened to her sob quietly, then blow her nose like she always did when she didn't want to wake me. But I was already wide awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Melanie, that name became an echo. A week later, I found the pictures. It was a Sunday. Mom was out cleaning someone else's house, and I was using her old laptop to type up a school project. The browser opened to Facebook, still logged into her account, and there they were, photos. Albums. His smile plastered across my screen like nothing had ever happened. Weekend in Napa Valley, he was holding hands with a woman with long, honey blonde hair. She looked polished and expensive, like she'd never used off-brand shampoo in her life. She had a wide smile, the kind women have when they know they've won. In the background of one photo, I saw the porch swing from our old summer house. Our swing, and then there was the one that made my blood freeze, a little girl. Curly light brown hair, maybe 5 years old. Sitting on his lap, looking up at him like he was the sun, Isabel's first piano recital. So proud of our baby girl, our baby girl. When Mom got home, I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at her while she pulled off her shoes and rubbed her tired feet. There were new blisters. She tried to hide them, but I always saw. She noticed me watching her. Something wrong, baby? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Who's Isabel? The blood drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. Where did you hear that name? I saw it. On Facebook. Her shoulders sagged. She sat beside me and took my hand. Melanie's daughter. His daughter. I stared at her. So he had another kid? She nodded, slowly. While we were still married. I didn't know until after he left. I only found out because the lawyer sent me divorce papers. He said that if I'll not sign them peacefully without asking anything, he'll make our lives a living hell. I do not have the energy or money to fight with him. And she started crying, my voice was trembling. Was he with her the whole time? I don't know, Mom whispered. Maybe. Maybe not. But he chose her. And he didn't just leave, Haley. He left us with nothing. We didn't talk about him after that. Not for a long time. I stopped using his last name that year, when the school called my mom Mrs. Bennett. I corrected them. It's just Ms. now. I was 15 the first time someone called me resilient. It was my history teacher, Mr. Carson, after I gave a presentation on civil rights leaders. He put a hand on my shoulder and said, "You're strong, Haley. You've got a fire in you." He meant it as a compliment. But all I could think about was how fire doesn't just warm, it burns, and I had been burning for years. The thing about being left behind is it teaches you one thing very quickly: no one is coming to save you. I stopped waiting for apologies. For explanations. For justice. My father's betrayal wasn't a wound anymore. It was a blueprint. I studied harder. I worked harder. I got up earlier. I stayed up later. I skipped parties and ignored group chats. I wasn't trying to fit in, I was trying to escape. Mom never said it out loud, but I knew she was scared I'd fall apart. She'd peek into my room late at night, thinking I was asleep, and just watch me. I never let her see me cry. I never wanted her to think I was crumbling, too. At 16, I got my first job at the corner grocery store. The manager, Rick, was a wiry man with a limp and a cigarette always dangling from his lips. He didn't ask questions when I said I could work every weekend. I need the hours. I said. He nodded, eyeing the calluses on my palms. You got bills or just pride? I smirked. Both. I stocked shelves. Mopped floors. Took out trash in the snow. I got good at being invisible, good at doing the work nobody else wanted. At night, I'd come home with aching feet, change out of my work shirt, and hit the books until I couldn't keep my eyes open. Sometimes, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Not because I didn't like who I saw, but because I had built her from scratch. College wasn't just a dream. It was the plan. I applied for every scholarship I could find, need-based, merit-based, essay-based. I wrote my story 100 times in 100 different ways. I told them about the eviction, about mom working 2 jobs, about my part-time shifts and straight A's, but I never once mentioned his name. He didn't deserve to be part of my success. I got a full ride to a state university. When I told mom, she cried so hard she couldn't speak. She just hugged me and whispered, "You did it, baby. You really did it." We celebrated with instant noodles and gas station chocolate bars. It was the best meal of my life. College was hard. I wasn't like the others. I didn't have backup plans or parents to call when rent was tight. I didn't get care packages or plane tickets home for the holidays. Home was a 1-bedroom apartment where my mother still worked 12-hour shifts, so I worked through school. Tutoring. Freelancing. Every odd job I could find. I didn't party. I didn't date. I didn't waste time on people who didn't know what it meant to go hungry so your mom could eat. I graduated early, with honors, and job offers lined up before I walked across the stage. I remember standing there in my cap and gown, hearing them call my name. Haley Bennett. Summa cum laude. I looked out into the crowd and saw mom standing there, hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. That moment, that was ours. He didn't get to have it. I got a good job. My own apartment. Health insurance. A 401k. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. And stable, after a childhood of chaos, felt like luxury. Every time I paid a bill on time or bought something without checking the price twice, I felt like I was stealing from the universe, but I earned this life. I built it. Piece by piece, some nights, I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling and think about him, not with longing. Not even with rage, just cold, distant awareness. The way you remember a natural disaster after it's over. He had been the storm, but I was still standing. I told myself I would never forgive him. And I didn't, but I also didn't let him own one more second of my happiness. And when people asked about my father, I'd say, "He's not in the picture." And that was that, but as it is said, ghosts don't knock, they creak floorboards. They whisper through vents. They live in old photos and words you wish you never heard. But they don't knock. Not like this, not loud. Not twice. Not in the middle of a quiet Sunday morning with the kettle just starting to whistle. Knock knock. I was home visiting mom for the weekend. She had insisted I needed a break, and for once, I agreed. We were drinking instant coffee and watching some old crime show when the knock came. She looked at me. I looked at her, then we both looked at the door. No one ever came to the door. Not without texting first. I got up slowly, mug still in hand, and pulled the curtain aside to peek through the narrow window. I froze. "Haley?" Mom stood behind me, sensing something. I didn't speak. Couldn't. She pushed past and looked for herself. The mug fell from her hand. He stood there like he belonged. Like this was just another Sunday and he was dropping by to say hi. As if the last 15 years hadn't happened. As if he hadn't left us buried under debt and lies. His hair was thinner. His frame, smaller. He looked like a ghost wearing his own skin. But I'd know that face anywhere. "Open the door," Mom whispered, almost to herself. "Why?" I said, my voice low and sharp. "So he can ask for more?" "Just open it," she said again, and this time it sounded like a prayer, so I did. I opened the door to the past, and there he was. "Haley," he said, like he'd been rehearsing it. I didn't respond. He glanced at Mom. "Grace." She said nothing. "Can I come in?" I crossed my arms. "Why?" His lips pressed together. "I need to talk to you." "We don't owe you anything." I said flatly. You need to talk? Send a letter. You're 15 years too late. I know, he said quickly. I know I don't deserve anything. I didn't know where else to go. Oh, did your other daughter run out of organs? He flinched. Good, Mom touched my arm gently. Let's hear what he has to say. I stepped aside, but I didn't say welcome. He walked in slowly, like the walls might collapse under his weight. We sat in the living room. I stayed standing. He took in the worn couch, the chipped coffee table, the clock that ticked a second too fast. Everything he had never returned to. My mom sat quietly, watching him like she didn't know whether to cry or slap him. He cleared his throat. I'm sick, he said finally. Stage 4 kidney failure. Silence, I'm on dialysis. But it's not working. The doctors said I need a transplant. Still, we said nothing. His voice cracked. I came to ask if you'd get tested. Tested? I said, staring. You want my kidney? He looked down. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't life or death. I laughed. A hollow, humorless thing. Life or death. Funny. That's exactly what you left us in. He looked up at me then, eyes glassy. I made mistakes, Haley. Big ones. But I never stopped thinking about you. No, I snapped. You stopped calling. You stopped showing up. You stopped paying the bills, showing up for birthdays, for Mom when she worked 3 jobs. But sure, maybe in the quiet moments between beach vacations and boutique openings, you thought of me. He didn't argue, he just looked tired. And small. I deserve your anger, he said. I do. But I'm asking not for forgiveness. Just a chance to live. I stared at him. This man. This stranger, the man who abandoned me, and now wanted a piece of me to keep him alive. You think you deserve a second chance, I said slowly. You think that showing up sick, with nowhere else to go, makes you entitled to my body? No, he said, shaking his head. I know I don't deserve it. I'm begging. Mom looked like she might be sick. Her hands trembled on her lap. You gave her the house. I said, eyes narrowing. Your mistress. You left us in debt and handed her a life we could have had. That was a mistake, he whispered. Yeah, I said. Coming here was one, too. He looked at me one last time, and there it was, hope, clinging to a dying man's eyes. Haley, please. I stood taller. I hope you can die peacefully, I said, voice like steel. Because that's more mercy than you ever showed us. He left without another word. Mom sat there, covering her mouth with one hand, tears streaming silently, and I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Power, not the power to hurt, but the power to choose. He didn't stop after that first visit. At first, I thought he would. That after I told him to his face that he was nothing to me, he'd crawl back into the silence he left us with. But no, ghosts don't just knock once, it turns out. Sometimes, they haunt. It started with a letter, written in messy, uneven handwriting. Like he couldn't quite hold the pen steady. Haley, I understand why you're angry. I deserve it. But I'm still your father. That means something. Please. Just think about it. I'm running out of time. No return address. Just my name and a desperate plea. I crumpled it and threw it away, but the letters kept coming. Emails. Voicemails. Even a friend request on Facebook from a blank profile I knew had to be him. He wasn't asking anymore, he was begging. One afternoon, I came home from work to find Mom sitting in the kitchen, phone in her hand, face pale. He came here, she said. What? Today. While I was out back watering the plants. He showed up again. I dropped my bag. Did he come inside? No. I told him to leave. He looked awful, Haley. Worse than last time. I should have felt something, pity maybe, but I didn't. Let him rot, I muttered. Mom flinched. Haley. What? He left you for a woman who only stayed until his wallet emptied and his kidneys failed. Why is he our problem again? Her silence was answer enough, because that's what had happened. After digging a little deeper, mostly out of morbid curiosity, I found out Melanie had left him 6 months ago. She'd taken Isabel, their teenage daughter, and moved across the country. Started over with some real estate agent she met at one of her boutique's fundraisers. She didn't want a sick man dragging her down. I heard he'd tried to reach out to Isabel, but she didn't reply. She was 17 now. Young enough to still believe people can change, but old enough to know when they probably won't. His dream family had dissolved the moment things got hard. Melanie didn't want a man who needed diapers again. She wanted champagne, not dialysis. He gave up everything for her, and in the end, she threw him away, the same way he threw us away. I started getting calls at work, unknown numbers. Private ID. I stopped answering. Once, he left a voicemail. Haley. I don't know where else to go. Please. I don't have insurance. The list is years long. I don't want to die in some hospital bed alone. The desperation in his voice didn't move me. Not the way he hoped. It made me angry. Why do men like him only come crawling back when they need something? He didn't miss me. He missed the idea of me. The daughter who might still be soft enough, wounded enough, desperate for love enough, to give him what no one else would, a second chance, a second life. One night, I was out late grabbing groceries. My phone buzzed, another voicemail. I didn't want to check it, but I did. Haley, it's me again. I'm sorry. I know you hate me. I deserve that. But I'm scared. And I know you're strong. You've always been strong, like your mother. Please. Think about it. You wouldn't even have to see me again after. I stood in the parking lot, staring at the rows of cars under flickering lights. I could have cried. Maybe a few years ago, I would have, but not anymore, not now. The next morning, I wrote him back. Just a few words. Not a plea. Not a tearful reconciliation, just truth. You chose your life, and I chose to survive the one you left behind. You don't get to ask for my body because your choices finally came full circle. I don't owe you life. You already took enough of mine. Then I blocked the number, Imam, and I sat on the couch later that night. She didn't ask what I said. She didn't need to, she just held my hand and whispered, I'm proud of you. I looked over at her, this woman who held me through every storm, every hunger pang, every night I wanted to scream and couldn't. I used to wonder if I was cold, I told her. For not caring. You're not cold, Haley, she said. You're whole. That's what he never wanted us to be. He wanted us broken, dependent, easy to forget. But I'm not, I said. No, baby. You're fire. Some people think closure comes with forgiveness, that if you don't forgive, you're holding on. That you're bitter. Angry. Damaged, but they don't understand. Some doors don't need to be opened again. Some doors need to be locked, bolted, and burned to ash. He showed up at my office. That was his last move. I came down the elevator after a long day of back-to-back meetings, my badge still clipped to my blouse and my phone half dead in my hand, and there he was. Sitting on the bench outside the glass lobby. A skeleton draped in clothes 2 sizes too big, my father, the man who disappeared when I was 10, the man who left my mother with bills instead of love, and me with scars I had to learn how to live around. He stood up when he saw me, a tired sort of hope in his eyes. Like maybe this time would be different. It wasn't. Haley, he said. I didn't stop walking. He followed me. Please, just 5 minutes. I already gave you 15 years of silence. That's more than 5 minutes. He reached for my arm. I stepped back. Don't touch me, I said sharply, loud enough to turn heads. He pulled his hand back, shaking. I just need you to hear me out. I sighed, turning to him. I did hear you. Every letter. Every voicemail. Every time you showed up like a ghost who thinks he's owed a resurrection. You don't understand. No, I cut in, you don't. You don't understand what it's like to go hungry while you buy handbags for your mistress. You don't understand the weight of debt collectors calling our house after you left. You don't understand what it's like to see your mother cry quietly in the bathroom every night and act strong in the morning so her daughter doesn't break too. His lips trembled. I was wrong. No, you were selfish, I snapped. And now you're desperate. And that's not the same as being sorry. I could see the panic creeping in. She left me, he said quietly. Melanie. Took Isabel. Said I was too much. A burden. I almost felt sorry for him, almost, but then I remembered what it felt like to be a little girl asking where her daddy went, and I felt nothing. You left us when we were a burden, I said coldly. You set the rules. You don't get to complain now that you're playing by them. I'm dying, he whispered. I don't have time. I looked him straight in the eye. That's not my problem. He took a step forward. I thought maybe if I could talk to you, you'd see I've changed. Changed? I laughed. You haven't changed. You're still trying to take something you didn't earn. Still acting like being my father is a favor to me instead of a responsibility you threw away. Tears welled in his eyes. I don't want to die alone. I shrugged. Should have thought of that before you made sure we had to live without you. He sank onto the bench, looking like the wind had been knocked out of him. I looked down at him one last time. No one is entitled to my body, I said softly. And just because you gave me life doesn't mean you get to demand a piece of mine back. He didn't reply, and I didn't wait. That night, I went home and poured a glass of wine. I sat on the couch with my legs tucked under me. Watching the sunset through the window, Mom called to check in. I told her he came. She was quiet for a moment. Are you okay? I nodded, then remembered she couldn't see me. I'm okay, I said. I finally said everything I needed to. And he finally heard me. I didn't feel joy, I didn't feel triumph, I felt peace, the kind that comes from choosing yourself after years of being told you owe your pain to someone else's comfort. I chose me, not out of spite, out of survival. If he dies, it won't be because of me. It'll be because of the man he chose to be, the man who left.